myself with every selfie. Lose sleep over wealth, it's not healthy. Finding a new religion on Yelp to come help me. Praying to the label itself, do not shelf me. In the middle with the beggars and rejects, reading between texts, weed, liquor, and sex. She say she love me at dusk, but at dawn I pack up my things and I'm gone. And I don't know where I'm gonna go, but I don't care, I'm on the road. Never been a perfect soul, but I will not apologize. Been a lot of places in this life, and I did a lot wrong I can't make right. Never been a perfect soul, but I will not apologize.
What's up, guys? I'm Student Operator, and today we're going to be doing a direct comparison between the SureFire X300 Ultra and the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. First things first, as you guys know, we always do the most messed up comment from the previous video, and we have two different videos to cover here today. So from the bank robber chest rig video, his hero is John commented, "Fun fact, you can double stuff them, but they'll never look the same. Ask me how I know." And an honorable mention for that one goes out to my buddy Corey, who runs Crash Medical Solutions. He said, "This matched nicely with my Wayfair dresser. Fun fact, the shoulder straps double as restraints." Nice. And then if you guys watch my little vlog video of my trip out to Illinois for the American Cancer Society Range Day, if you watch the vlog, you knew I had to fly out there. So, where is it here? The one and only Nick asked, "What else did the TSA search?" Nick, that's a secret I'm going to take to my grave. We live in a pretty exciting time, especially in terms of firearms development and the development of their accessories, especially with weapon lights. Aaron Cowan from Sage Dynamics, you've heard me reference him before, he quoted this as the lumen war, and weapon light technology has been advancing rapidly, even since when I first started getting into the tactical scene back around 2015, 2016. So seeing the advancement in what has come out just since I've started paying attention is kind of mind-blowing, and I'm honestly really excited to see where the future goes. But today we will be taking a direct look at and comparing the SureFire 1000 lumen X300 Ultra directly to the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. Now, how did I go about getting these weapon lights? Well, the Streamlight I bought myself, full retail. I didn't have anybody sponsoring me. This was a few years ago. I was trying to decide which weapon light to buy, and honestly could have used a video like this to really break it down and show me directly how the two compared to each other. So I paid for the Streamlight with my own money. The SureFire here that I have on the Beretta LTT Elite, I actually won this in an Instagram giveaway from Big Tex Outdoors, so thank you to those guys. I'm putting it to very good use. And but again, I have no relationship with SureFire, and Big Tex Outdoors doesn't even know who I am other than probably a shipping address. But just I wanted to be clear and known that I have no relationship with either company, and neither company gave me them for free. There was no exchange of money, nothing like that. So this is a totally fair and unbiased review. So, if you're watching this video to begin with, you probably already know the answer to this question. But for those who don't, why have a weapon light? So, you can't fucking see in the dark. I mean, it's not a super hard concept to grasp, right? But if you think about your 4 rules of firearm ownership and shooting them, firearms handling, whatever you want to call it, one of the very first rules is know your target and what lies before and beyond it, and really 360 degrees around it. But how can you know exactly what you're shooting at if you can't positively identify it? Everybody thinks that the weapon lights are only for when it's pitch black, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you may be in a dim situation or indoor with the lights are out, and you need to positively identify what you're about to put a bunch of holes in. So it's critical to know exactly who the person is, what they're holding, if they're a threat to you, if they're not. So weapon lights, one of the biggest advantages is positive identification of your target. There are also other advantages, like being able to see if it's too dark too, and being able to use that light to put it in their face and control them, and hopefully be able to downplay the situation enough to the point where you don't have to start pressing off rounds. So when you're shopping for a weapon light, one of the key words that you're looking for and one of the key terms that the advertiser is pushing is lumens. And like I said earlier, it's the lumen war, right? Well, yes and no. Lumens are important, but what's even more important than that is candela. Think about it as lumens are horsepower at the engine and candela is horsepower at the wheels. Horsepower at the engine doesn't do you anything if they can't get it to the wheels. Candela is your horsepower. Basically, candela is defined as the intensity at a point, and what that really breaks down to is how far it can push your lumens. So lumens are important, but more important than that is candela. As a great example of that, the Mod Light OKW head. It's only 690 lumens, but it produces 69 nice 1,000 candela. So even though it's a dimmer than both of the lights that we're going to be taking a look at here today, it can easily push that light out to 250 yards, no problem. So here I have the latest generation of the SureFire X300U on the Beretta LTT Elite. This is a 1,000 lumen weapon light, and it has 11,300 candela. The light itself is 3.6 inches long, which don't worry guys, it is a sizable length. It has an aluminum housing where the whole body of the light is made out of aluminum, and it's mil-spec, hard coat anodized. It also has IPX7 waterproof and a 1 hour and 15 minute runtime. SureFire has this listed on their website at $300. Common street price is about $275. You can find it cheaper elsewhere, especially Big Daddy Unlimited. Not sponsored, I'm just a member and I happen to know what their prices are, and it's a good price for this light. It's a really good price. Now, the Streamlight TLR-1 HL, which I have here on my HK P30 LEM, is it's an 800 lumen weapon light, but it has 15,000 candela. So a little less than 4,000 more candela than the SureFire. And we're gonna see how that plays into it later. Now, I should mention that this is not the latest iteration of the TLR-1 HL. They do now have a 1,000 lumen model, and I'll go over those stats after this so you can compare. But this light has a 1 hour and 45 minute long runtime. It is 3.39 inches long, also IPX7 waterproof, and it's constructed out of 6000 series aluminum. Now, the newest Streamlight TLR-1 HL, which I do not have, is 1,000 lumens and boasts 20,000 candela, so almost twice the candela of the SureFire X300U. It is also 3.39 inches long. This one has a 1 hour and 30 minute runtime, so 15 minutes shorter than this 800 lumen model that I have. Also IPX7 waterproof and 6000 series aluminum. The best I can tell, these two lights are dimensionally the same and should fit all of the same holsters for the Streamlight TLR-1. The controls on these two lights are slightly different, but they both work perfectly fine. I'm going to overlay a little video clip of how you use both of these lights activation switches. The SureFire, you press in from the rear on both sides, or you can press up or down for constant mode on both sides. The Streamlight is a little less friendly for left-handed people. If you use your support side thumb and push down, it will turn the light on for momentary, but if you push the paddle up, it will turn it on for constant. And that paddle goes on both sides of the weapon light, so if you are using it with your trigger finger if you're right-handed, or your support side thumb if you're wrong-handed, then it's going to be pushing up for momentary only or down for constant one, which isn't quite as friendly to left-handed users. All right, so now that we've gone over the features, let's see what the lights actually look like. Keep in mind that the video camera isn't going to pick up on the light output and everything that you see perfectly. I'm filming this on an iPhone 11 Pro, and the target that we're going to be looking at various distances at various lighting conditions is just your standard IDPA, USPSA, whatever target. So roll those clips now. Here we are at 7 yards. This is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And here's the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. We are now at 15 yards. Here is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. We are now at 25 yards. Here's the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. This is at about 15 yards. You can see here that we have a street light that we are contending with, so we have some photonic barriers. Here is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. We are now at about 25 yards, so now I have a street light over my head, and then we have the house light. So now we're at about 25 yards. Here's the TLR-1 HL and the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. We're now looking at about 15 yards through my lit garage. So obviously we have a large photonic barrier there. The target is leaning up against a trash can. You can still see it's fairly visible due to the ambient lighting. However, here is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. All right, guys, I have the target set up in the driver's seat of my mom's car. We are 5 yards away from the target with some backlighting going on. Here is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. You can see a real nice, bright, defined hotspot. Now we're going to do the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. You can see the hotspot's a little bit less. All right, same setup at about 10 yards. Here's the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. Here we are in a more well-lit part of the house, looking into a darker part of the house. We're roughly 10 yards away from the target. Here is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. And again, looking down a flight of stairs, we're in a well-lit area, looking into a little bit less lit of an area. However, you can see that the target is still clearly visible. So this would be a situation where you would be trying to use your weapon light for control or a little bit better positive identification. So here is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And here is the SureFire X300 1000 lumen. All right, so now that we've taken a look at how the two different lights perform output-wise, let's kind of talk about their light a little bit. So the SureFire X300, it produces what they call a more cool light. It's a little bit more white, whereas the Streamlight TLR-1 HL produces what they call a more warmer light. It looks a little bit more yellowish. Now, some people say that the yellow light helps with better identifying colors, especially out to further ranges, and that the warmer lights also push through photonic barriers a little bit better. So now let's talk about what a photonic barrier is. A lot of people say that light blocks light, and that's not 100% true. Light diminishes light and can kind of act as a barrier that slows it down, so to speak. So what can create a photonic barrier? Well, it's anything that there's light in darkness, because darkness is nothing more than the absence of light. So these can be produced by street lights, vehicle headlights, any kind of lights over like a parking lot. If you're standing in a dark room looking through a lit room and into another dark room, that is also a photonic barrier. So they can kind of slow down the horsepower that your weapon light produces. And that's why it's important to have a lot of candela to be able to push through it. So there are two things that are really important when looking at a weapon light, and one thing that's kind of nice to have. So the two things that are really important are the actual usability of the light beam and also the durability / reliability. The third thing that's nice to have is really good activation of your controls. So let's break down and look at the usability of the two beams individually. In all honesty, although this is typically seen as the cheaper option, being the TLR-1 HL, I actually prefer this beam. Yes, it has 150 less lumens, but it has more candela, which helps me to push that light beam further, and it gives me a more concentrated hotspot of the beam. As you can see, it's a pretty good hotspot. So the color identification, I've never really noticed to be a huge thing. Nor have I really noticed that having a warmer light helps to push through photonic barriers better. It simply comes down to the candela. This gives me more usable light at further ranges. Now, we're talking about ranges that are a little bit past your typical handgun distance, but anything can happen. And this light is meant to replace the sun. So when I turn this light on, I want to be able to see as much as possible. If I could see everything, that would be ideal. However, unfortunately, the sun does not have a simple on-off switch that only I control. Now, the SureFire X300 doesn't by any means create a bad output. The hotspot is still decent. However, it is ever so slightly larger than the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And it has less candela, which means less usable light at a distance. Now, what kind of distances do I typically notice this at? Inside of a house, you are not going to notice. 15 yards and in, you are same. They are both totally adequate and rather comparable to each other. Where you really start to notice this is once you get out to a distance, like outside, because hopefully you leave your mom's basement occasionally and venture into the outside world. And not everything happens within the confines of your basement. Now, when you get out to 25 yards, you start to notice the difference in the beam. The Streamlight definitely gives you a tighter beam, and the candela help to push those lumens out and help you be able to better identify your target. Once you get out to 30, 35, 40 yards especially, you really start to notice a difference. And if you're doing like low light, night shooting type of things, you're going to really notice a difference, especially when you have to start pushing through the smoke and the dust created by actually shooting your guns. I hope at least some of you do that. If you put the two head to head, you really start to notice that the Streamlight produces a much more usable beam at a distance. Like I said, it's not really something to be concerned about within your typical pistol engagement distances. However, when you get out to extended ranges is where you notice it. We've already discussed how the controls on the two lights work, and honestly, from using both of them, neither one's necessarily hard. Neither one really give you any kind of issues. For all intents and purposes, they're pretty much the same. I wouldn't pick one over the other in terms of the usability of their controls. There is one thing with the Streamlight switch that we will get into when it comes to reliability. However, we'll talk about that in a second. And by a second, I mean, I think that's like the next thing I'm talking about. All right, reliability. This is always a fun thing to talk about when it comes to Streamlight. So to date, this is the only Streamlight weapon light that I haven't broken yet. So I've had this light for, I don't know, 2 years or so. And in that time, I've put well north of 10,000 rounds through it. I believe somewhere a little north of 13,000, but you kind of lose track after a while. This light has been mostly 100% reliable. The one thing that happens is dust, and not so much dust, but like lint from your clothing, especially your underwear if you're carrying, really if you're carrying anywhere on your waistline. Gunk will get between the switch and the light body itself, specifically the end cap. And what that does is when you activate the light, when you go to release it, sometimes it's a little bit laggy where you got to give it another bump up for it to go back into the off position. That's not great, Because when you want light, you want it now. And when you don't want light, you want it gone. So being able to keep an eye on that and make sure that it's not clogged up and it's not delayed in its return to the off position is crucial when you have this weapon light. But it can happen, and that's something that I'm just really not a big fan of. When it comes to reliability, Streamlight takes the cake. And that's something that, man, has been just common knowledge for what feels like forever. When it comes to weapon lights, Streamlight knows how to make one that will not fail. I mean, Marines even have a harder time breaking these than they have breaking most things. Marines will break everything, given enough time. However, these stand up to their abuse just a little bit more. Love you, Mike. When it comes down to which weapon light I'm choosing for my everyday carry and just the type of things that I choose weapon lights for, the SureFire still wins for me. Even though I don't love the light output quite as much as I do the Streamlight TLR-1 HL, when I want this thing to turn on, it turns on. And when I want it off, it goes off. And it has done that every single time, reliably and dependably. I don't have any concerns about anything getting gunked up. This light, it just works. I've never had any reason to suspect that it wouldn't. Keep it fed with fresh batteries and it's going to run for you. So at the end of the day, this is the light that I choose. I do want to point out though that the Streamlight TLR-1 HL is not necessarily a bad light. There's just, like I said, you have to keep an eye on it. Mine has worked very, very well for me in my time using it. If I had to recommend a use for this thing, it's a little bit more budget friendly at about half the price of the SureFire. So a lot of people who aren't quite as serious about their guns are going to spring for the cheaper one because this is still a good light. And it would be perfectly adequate for something like a home defense situation or a carry gun if you're a little bit more on a budget. Now, still, being on a budget is not an excuse to buy junk gear. And I'm not saying that this is junk. This is a good weapon light, and you should not be embarrassed or ashamed to run one of these as opposed to a SureFire. At least that's my current opinion because I haven't really had any major issues with this. Like I said, you just gotta watch the switch and make sure that they don't get gunked up. But for someone who's maybe more getting into it or just trying out carrying with a weapon light, or just wants a weapon light on a pistol for home defense, this is a fantastic option. Now, if you are someone who is taking shooting a little bit more seriously, I would recommend spending the extra money on a SureFire. You're not gonna have the concerns with reliability. You just know this thing's gonna work. It's going to be durable. It's going to turn on when you need it on and off when you want it off. And those are things that you really need. So I hope that this comparison video was able to give you guys a better idea of how these lights really stack up to each other. Like I said, I don't have my hands on the newer Streamlight TLR-1 HL, the 1000 lumen model. I would like to, however, I'm not going to go out and spend the money on it myself. Especially when I'm really excited for Mod Light's new pistol light. It's going to be able to be interchanged with all of their rifle light heads, so I'm really looking forward to having the PLH V2 head on my everyday carry pistol. That head is 1,350 lumens with 54,000 candela, and that just absolutely blows everything else out of the water. So I'm super excited for that. It should be out fairly soon, and I'm pre-ordering one the second that they go live. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and leave a like and a comment. Tell me how I can make these videos better. Tell me what kind of stuff you'd like to see. If you guys are following me on Instagram, which you should be, that's @student_operator. If you see me running any kind of equipment and you want to see a video on it, let me know. Drop in a comment on one of my Instagram posts. Just let me know what kind of stuff you guys want to see more of, and I'll definitely try to get that into the video queue of videos that I want to make. I have the next few planned, but I'm always down to hear what you guys want to see and be able to bring you that kind of knowledge if I'm knowledgeable enough to speak on it. So, like I said, thank you guys for watching, and for those of you who actually watched to the end, here's a little pro tip: how to keep your weapon light clean. When you get your weapon light, take some CLP and put it on the lens. Just a couple drops, 2-3 drops, and just wipe it around with your finger. It'll dry on there and solidify not solidify, but it'll get less runny, and it's going to give you a clear beam still. It's not going to really dilute your beam. However, what it's going to do is after you shoot, like you can see the top of this weapon light is black from the carbon that comes out of the barrel. It's going to prevent that carbon from sticking to your lens of your light, and then that will diminish your light beam. But if you put the CLP on it, then you can just wipe it off with your thumb or the part of your shirt or cleaning cloth or whatever, and you just put more CLP on. It generally stays good on there for about a week, so every week or so I reapply, just like I said, just a few drops of CLP, but a little tip to help you keep your light clean. All right guys, thanks a lot, stay safe, we'll see you next time.